Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Devontae, and I sacrifice my time so you don't have to. So you're hearing this video now, probably around 10 or 11 o'clock. I'm at work right now at the moment. Just a bit of a reminder, just to let you guys know, like I said earlier in the post and in the other videos, for some of you guys speculating where the fuck are the reviews, I will be back reviewing SmackDown, NXT, and maybe even Raw around the September time period, a little bit after summertime. Unfortunately, I'm in a bit of a pickle, a bit of a situation, familial situations. Not going to get too much in detail. That's why I'm not reviewing SmackDown at the moment. Won't be for a bit. Bear with me, but I am going to be replacing most of the review videos if I can, with some other commentary videos, this being one of it, just in case any of you guys are wondering where the fuck are the reviews. All right, good, got it, nice. So this video that you're hearing right now, unless something happened throughout the day, don't question me on it. I made this video, well, right now, currently at the moment, it's 11:25 in the morning. You're getting this video like almost a full day later. So if anything were to happen in between those time frames, again, this is recorded hours beforehand. So if anything did happen, pretend this didn't exist and just focus on the actual fucking main point of the goddamn video. Okay, let's go. So check this out. Gunther, he sat down for an interview. Let me see what the interview is called so I can give them some credit. They're called the Gorilla Position, right? And he was giving his thoughts on Damien Priest. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people talking about Damien. Well, I guess it depends on your perspective. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know if you're a Damien Priest fan or not. Talking about Damien Priest does not deserve to be in his spot going at SummerSlam, and that some of the fans are a little bit disappointed that this is going to be the SummerSlam match because they wanted someone to be a little bit more formidable going against Gunther, because it's a good shot that Gunther's going to win the World Heavyweight Championship, and they want that championship belt to mean a little bit more coming off a guy going on to Gunther. So they want people like Seth Rollins, maybe someone like a CM Punk, maybe someone like a Drew McIntyre. Obviously, those two are feuding, but they want someone of that notoriety to drop the belt to someone like a Gunther to make it seem a little bit more, not transitional. You know what I'm trying to say? I have been seeing happy talk like that. They question this and most of the programming for WWE. I think we heard Triple H talk about this at the press conference when referencing Damien Priest. Obviously, Damien Priest right now, he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. Obviously, with the mistakes made at Money in the Bank, that didn't help out matters at all. Damien Priest, before I even talk about this, kind of just give my own 2 cents before I go really in depth after reading the excerpt from Gunther. Damien Priest kind of reminds me of Eddie Guerrero as a world champion. No, it has nothing to do with his Hispanic roots, you fucking racist. It has nothing to do at all, period, point blank, about being Hispanic. It's more so, if you know the background of Eddie Guerrero and how he felt when he was holding the WWE Championship back in 2004, that's what it reminds me of. I heard so many people talking about they kind of contributed, Eddie's early death because of how much pressure he was putting on himself. Like, I heard that he was taking, and this is what I heard, he was taking more, what you call growth hormones just to look a little bit more presentable in Vince's eyes as a world champion, which obviously kind of cut down as far as his wrestling ability, because obviously more muscle mass is going to slow you down. Not to mention he's getting older, more bumps on the body. Obviously, this doesn't help matters that he was still kind of reeling from the car accident he had 5 years prior to that. And he was just putting so much pressure on himself to keep up with the trials and tribulations that came with being the world champion. Not to mention, I think people forget sometimes with Eddie Guerrero in his world title run that this is only in 2004, so we're talking about February. So we're in the middle going into April. He was only 3 years, damn near 3 years removed since returning to the company. He got fired, and no, not even 3 years. I'm sorry, 2 years. He got fired in November. I think it was right around Survivor Series time in 2001. That's when he got fired because of all the shit that was happening with his drug problems. I forgot how the story went. Someone can correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think the last straw was him being passed out in some bathroom because of some situations having to do with drugs. I think he was, Eddie's drug of choice was, popping pills, and he was alcoholic on top of that also. But what I mean by that is he put so much pressure on himself to kind of overcome all of that stuff that most people kind of feel that contributed to his, early demise because of all the pressure he put on himself. And obviously Damien Priest isn't doing that kind of stuff, the wellness policy, thanks to people like Guerrero. So if anything, Guerrero doing that and putting that much pressure on himself was kind of an early attributor to things like the wellness policy that have saved a bunch of wrestlers' lives. But with Damian Priest, I kind of feel like he's putting that kind of pressure on himself, not to the degree of Eddie Guerrero, but inside the same realm. Because I got to believe that Damian Priest does not feel like he's worthy of being the world champion. You know what I mean? I know, listening to Damian Priest and how he talks and stuff like that, the dude is clearly, how do I put this? Not self-aware. I'm sorry. Well, that too, but he has some what's the word I'm looking for right now? Okay. Oh, self-esteem. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, Damian Priest it's pretty clear he has some really, 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 really low self-esteem about himself when you hear him talk, when you hear Triple H talk about himself. And, it does suck when people have to, look at themselves in a certain manner because they don't really feel like they belong in that lineage, in that upper echelon. And, here, let me read this excerpt for Gunther because I really want to go more in depth into all this. So Gunther says that this gorilla position shit, and I'll leave a link down in the description box below. I heard that, and this is coming from Gunther, I heard that too in reference to Damian Priest not believing that he deserves to be in the position that he is in going into SummerSlam. I heard that too. People were like, why is Seth not involved? Why is Drew not involved? Why is Punk not involved? On the other hand, it's the same people that will complain that there are no new stars built. There's no opportunities for other people than the usual ones. And I feel going into a match with Priest, second or third biggest PLE in the company, is just a testament for management right now, how it's important to them to feature new faces in those big roles and situations, and now it's up to both of us to step up to it. That was Gunther's remarks on Damian Priest being in the position that he's in right now. And like I said, kind of going back, because I hear what Gunther's saying, and there's two things to that effect. One, and it's kind of hard to say, man. On one hand, because I have been having a problem with how Damien Priest, very similar to how I look at Swerve Strickland and AE, although not as detrimental, not even fucking close, because at least Damien Priest, he's shown throughout the show. Obviously, the Judgment Day is arguably the biggest act on Raw and has been for almost, you can kind of say, for a couple of years now, right? So it's not to the degree of a Swerve Strickland or an AEW World Championship, but it's pretty clear that they kind of have CM Punk and Drew McIntyre as probably the primary focus on Raw above a Damian Priest, right? But at the same time, though, it's not as if they haven't featured Damian Priest a lot either. Like I just said, he is not the focal point, but from a quality standpoint, he's not the focal point. But from a quantity standpoint, yeah, you can argue that Damian Priest is probably the number one guy. That's why I said I'm going to kind of like make a distinction between him and the world champions in AEW, just for the simple fact with the AEW world champion is not only are they not the primary focus, but also they're not shown a lot throughout the show. You might be lucky to get one segment. God forbid if you got two segments with a Swerve Strickland, for an example. With Damian Priest, yeah, he's not on the level as far as the primary focus as, say, a Drew McIntyre or a CM Punk, or as far as like fan engagement is considered. I'm pretty sure more fans care more about the McIntyre and Punk feud than anything regarding Damian Priest. You know what I mean? That's pretty obvious. You can look at that with your own eyes. That's very observational. But at the same time, though, it's not to take away from the fact that, like I said, Damian Priest, he's shown from the beginning, he's shown in the middle, and typically he's kind of shown in the end of the show also. Now, again, you can make an argument when looking at the Judgment Day. Is it really Damian Priest who's the focal point currently at the Judgment Day, or is it Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio, with the stuff going on with Liv Morgan? So that's kind of, a bit of a, if you want to question that also, I can completely understand. But like I said, it's not as if the opportunities haven't been given to Damian Priest. Can I ask you guys, do you believe that Damian Priest at the moment going into the match with Drew McIntyre, or excuse me, not Drew McIntyre, for Rudy and Slip, do you think the match with him and Gunther is SummerSlam worthy? Think about this for a second. I think there's a bit of a double standard being played here, right? Now, a healthy double standard. It's not something that I feel is egregious, not something that I feel is disingenuous. People are picking favorites. I think it's something that we can, again, look at it from an observational standpoint and make a legitimate assessment as far as the situation is considered. I think when you look at someone like Gunther going up against Damian Priest, one can make an argument. Now, granted, not on the same level, because like I said, both views are presented in a different way and both competitors are presented in a different way. But one can make an argument in regards to name value that it's very akin to something like a Shinsuke Nakamura and a Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam a couple of years ago. I can see the comparisons being made. I can see them being in the same rounds. Now, I think Gunther and Damien means more now than Shinsuke and Jinder did back in 2017. But if someone were to make that argument of, well, look at what we have nowadays. We have this versus, say, some big name feud or a big name match. Like, let's just put this, I'll throw out an example, let's just pretend for an example. What was one of the biggest SummerSlam matches of all time, right? Let's look at something along the lines of, I don't know, I'll take a big draw. Let's look at a big draw. Let's look at, I want to say Heaven and Hell, like with Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, because I do think that was one of the more bigger draws in SummerSlam history, but I'll be a little bit more relevant with you guys. Let's take something on the lines of, I don't know, Rock and Brock Lesnar, right? 2002, we'll say Rock and Brock. How do we go from Rock and Brock to Shinsuke and Jinder Mahal, right? I think most people will probably look at a comparison like that and say that's a big fall from grace, right? But I can see people making that same argument. I know for most people, you won't say that because you're within the bubble of professional wrestling nowadays. And obviously we can look at that and we can say to ourselves, yeah, obviously it's not on par with Brock and Rock. But at the same time, you're comparing greatness to something that's a little bit less great, but it's not necessarily what I would call a complete fail in comparison to Shinsuke and Jinder Mahal if you were to make that comparison. But you get what I'm saying though, right? That's the comparisons people who don't care for professional wrestling would make. And they will look at both scenarios, whether it's Jinder and Shinsuke or Damien and Gunther, and they will say, well, yeah, this is definitely proof of the downfall of professional wrestling in comparison to Brock and Rock. No matter how you feel about the distinction being made, that's what people will say, and they will probably make an appropriate comparison in regards to both of those versus Rock and Brock. And who does that blame fall on to? You know what I mean? Because even though Damien Priest, like I said, in comparison to a Swerve Strickland, it's not even in the same realms as far as people who are being presented as world champions, there is something that I can't put my finger on in regards to Damien Priest that is missing. You can't sit here and you can't ignore it. You can't sit here and pretend that it doesn't exist. There is something about Damien Priest that is kind of missing. And it's not as if he's not given prominent storylines. It's not as if he's not given the spotlight to at least show out. It's not as if he's not given the position where, yes, he's currently underneath a Drew and a CM Punk. It's not as if he can't put himself into a position where he's so charismatic, where he kind of overshadows a Drew and a CM Punk. Kind of similar to what Drew McIntyre had to do last year when he overshadowed a Seth Rollins eventually, even though Seth Rollins was the world champion. Drew McIntyre was around this time, Drew McIntyre was bumblefucking around with Matt Riddle. You guys remember that? Well, not necessarily around this time, but, well, actually even worse, because it wasn't even just Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle was a little bit further down the line, like a month or two later around this time. He was actually bumblefucking around with Gunther, and one might call one of the most disappointing matches in SummerSlam history with him versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. There were a lot of people, including myself, in one of my last pay-per-view reviews, if not my last pay-per-view review on my Millennial Smart channel, I remember saying that, yeah, the match between Gunther and Drew McIntyre, especially going off of their insanely amazing triple threat match with Sheamus at WrestleMania earlier that year, yes, it was a complete disappointment in my opinion, just given the talent and considering what they did earlier on. Right? But at the same time, you look at what Drew McIntyre did going forward with Matt Riddle, and you can see Seth Rollins as the world champion, and he completely overshadowed. A little bit not too long after that, he overshadowed Seth Rollins. There were talks about him going to AEW, letting his contract run out, him going to Wembley Stadium, all that talk. Remember? Hell, some of those talks was happening during a little bit earlier this year. All that was going on. And he took that and he ran with it, and he used it as gasoline to get himself more over. Damien Priest is the world champion. There should be no excuse where he is now in the Drew McIntyre role, and Drew McIntyre is in the world title role, even though he's not the world champion and Damien Priest is the world champion. You get what I'm saying? There's some miscommunications going on right now as far as the push is considered in regards to how they're connecting with the fans. Not miscommunication on the part of Drew McIntyre. He's doing his part with CM Punk, but miscommunication in regards to Damien Priest and how he's connecting with the fans. And I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it has more to do with the fact that his charisma level is just not up to par where he can qualify as a guy who should be carrying the strap. And look, I'm not the kind of guy to go out of my way and say that a guy should drop the belt because he fucking sucks or this, that, and the third. I'm just speaking from the perspective as a fan. Well, actually, let me take that back. I am saying one guy should probably do this or do that from my own perspective. What I'm saying is I don't advocate for that because at the end of the day, I know that this is a guy's job. That championship belt probably means more money, which means more food for him to put on the table if he has kids, which I don't think Damien Priest does. But in any circumstance, I know that means more for a guy from a monetary standpoint. So I'm not here to advocate necessarily for that position to take hold. But what I am here is to talk about is my position from a fan looking at this from a kayfabe standpoint, right? And my position is Damien Priest worth, or how do I put this? Because it's gonna, no, let's just say it. Fuck it. Let's just come out and say it. Is he worthy enough to hold on to the strap? Is he worthy enough to go into SummerSlam with that World Championship belt? Because one will say that Gunther right now is in the Brock Lesnar role and Damien Priest is in the Rock role. But is Damien Priest worthy enough to be in that Rock role to pass the championship belt off to Brock Lesnar, which is what the role Gunther is playing at the moment? Well, see, that's where the problem lies. Because Gunther, at least from a positional standpoint, feels more like The Rock, and Damien Priest feels more like the Brock Lesnar. But the thing is, Brock Lesnar won the championship belt from The Rock, and Damien Priest is the world championship the world champion playing the role of Brock Lesnar. And it doesn't feel like he deserves the championship. It's so, I know I'm confusing the fuck out of you guys right now because I'm confusing myself right now as far as looking at the situation. No, I'll come out and say it. Just looking at the positions right now currently being played at the moment, seeing the enthusiasm from Damien Priest really not being there, at least in my opinion at the moment. Do I believe that Damien Priest should be in this championship position? No, I would like for him to be in that position. I don't think anyone would look at a position like this and say to themselves that they wouldn't want to see someone in this position. At the end of the day, you want to see someone with the strap actually be something more presentable. You want to see someone with the strap be something to get you more hyped up for a show or for a match, obviously. I don't think anyone believes that a guy going into a match like this should be anything less than. But with Damien Priest, I do look at that and I am very reserved. You know, I look at Damien Priest and I do say to myself that, okay, you have a match for the World Championship. Most likely, let's just say hypothetically, Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa actually ends up being the World Championship match, right? Like I said, I'm not around to watch SmackDown. That's in a few hours from now, but let's just hypothetically say Cody Rhodes, Solo Sikoa, right? All this is building up to Roman Reigns. You end up doing CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. You end up having Liv Morgan going up against Rhea Ripley for the World Championship, the Women's World Championship, that is. You have so many matches that has taken precedent over the World Championship. And this is supposed to be Gunther's crowning achievement. And it feels like if Damien Priest is supposed to be in that role of transitional champion, well, goddamn, you didn't really make the best of a situation that was awarded to you, right? Now, granted, it's pretty cool for Damien Priest to now have a footnote as a former world champion. It's going to do wonders for him if, God forbid, he was ever released. Not wishing that on anyone, just saying. But at the same time, looking at the situation for what it's worth, looking at it surface level, just observing what I'm looking at currently at the moment. How many things I'm going to say looking at? Sound like Kamala Harris right now at the moment. My point being is, I just want more for the World Championship. I like how they're positioning it more in comparison to, say, other World Championships like the AEW World Championship. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Damien Priest is just not delivering in that position. It's not to say anything bad about him. I don't know if it's a confidence situation. I don't know what it is. It's just like he just doesn't feel like a world champion. He reminds me, I'm saying Eddie Guerrero, which I think is an appropriate comparison in my opinion as far as how he personally feels looking at Damien Priest and how his position is. But actually looking at the character and looking at how he carries the championship belt, it kind of feels more so like Jericho's run also in 2001, where it's like you have so many talents around you. And I love Jericho. Jericho's my favorite wrestler of all time. Had to get one in at least. But, I'm not that much of a mark to realize that Jericho is a champion when Undertaker's the hardcore champion. Austin and Rock are there. Kurt Angle is there. Triple H is returning. It just doesn't really feel right. The NWO's around. All this is happening and Jericho's the world champion. That's just weird. And with Damien Priest, not to that degree, but it just feels weird knowing that Seth Rollins is there, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre is there. Hell, at this point, yes, even Gunther. And to just look at Damien Priest as world champion, it's just like, I mean, it would have been nice if you would have done something to make us believe that you're warranted this, but I mean, I haven't really seen it yet. I like to see it. I want to see it, but I haven't seen it yet. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below as far as how you feel about the commentary. Again, I don't feel like I'm throwing shade at Damien Priest. I don't think I said anything that was really that, blasphemous for any of the Damien Priest marks out there. I think I just said what was on my mind, and I think I just said the things that, I don't know, I gotta believe most people are thinking at the moment going into SummerSlam. You look at the priority of that card, and you can make an argument that Cody and Solo, CM Punk and Drew, and even Liv and Rhea take precedent over whatever Damien Priest is doing, and he's the world champion. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. And maybe they can do something with Damien and Gunther to kind of heat this up a little bit going into SummerSlam. But just going off of name value alone, and this has nothing to do with Gunther. Gunther has yet to really go on to show himself as a world champion. We'll see how he performs once he gets that world championship belt. But Damien Priest is the one handing the belt off to him, most likely. Damien Priest is the one who theoretically should be carrying that card. And it's not as if the company hasn't done anything to put him in the correct position to have the opportunity to do that. It all comes back to Damien Priest. And the question has to be asked. Does he deserve to be in that position, looking at what he's been doing for the past couple of months? I gave my perspective and I gave my answer. Now it's time for you guys to do the exact same thing. So go ahead and do that down in the comment section below. Let me get the fuck up out of here. Again, I will be back in September with the reviews. No more reminding you guys of that. I think I did enough doing of that. Okay, we're good. Let me get the fuck up out of here. It's about to start raining anyways. As always, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you fine folks later. A deuces and a P-eyes.